Grip strength has come up a lot over the years with associations with mortality, cancer, all that. You really embody exercise. How do you approach grip strength with the average person?
So here's what I think about grip strength. Grip strength is a proxy for whole body strength. So independently training your grip to live longer, I don't think is a wise way to go. I think if you train your overall body strength, your grip strength will then, naturally increase. And so, picking up, carrying heavy things, the benefit of that is not so much from a longevity standpoint that my grip is stronger. It's just I'm stronger as a whole person. So that's a proxy.
Yeah, but
it's easy to measure, right?
Yeah.
You can't put patients in your clinic and have them do deadlifts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what's going to happen. But odds are the people that have stronger grip strength are going to have higher deadlifts than other people are. So it's really a whole body proxy strength. And so that's how I took a look at this. But if I'm training grip strength, again, it's functional stuff, hanging from a bar. I mean, if you're into it, deadlifting, and there's grip trainers, but really, I don't look at that as, I'm going to live longer because my grip's long, my grip's stronger. I look at it because my grip is stronger because I'm stronger as an overall person, and therefore, I'm going to have that strength advantage and that longevity advantage.
No, I love that. That's such a good point. And speaking of that, there's a lot more data now coming out as we know high body fat percentage is linked with all sorts of diseases, but also to the contrary to that, so to speak, is low lean mass. So there's this new lean mass index, and prioritizing that, how can we reframe that for people so they understand hey, it's not just about burning fat, it's about maintaining muscle as you age.
We have this concept, and I think the worst thing is sarcopenic obesity. I mean, we have this phenomenon of people that both have enormous amounts of obesity, but they also have very low mass, and that is like the death sentence. That is the absolute worst you can have. And actually, there's been studies that suggest that people that are overweight don't have this mortality risk. But however, once you look at it, when you calculate for lean mass, it's the lean mass that's protecting them. So bigger people that have more lean mass are at less risk than bigger people that don't have lean mass. And so it's not that obesity is okay. It's just that if you have a lot of muscle with it, you're not as bad off as somebody who doesn't have a lot of muscle.
Excellent point. Well, do you think that they have more muscle because they're just carrying around more body mass? Could that be part of it?
Yeah. Mass resistance training. We walked around with a 50-pound and 75-pound vest. If you did that every day for your life, you're going to have more leg muscle. And when it comes to longevity, what I think when they look at like leg strength, quadricep strength, that probably has a more realistic, significant advantage over grip strength. Because, you think about it, when you start losing your ability to ambulate independently, and that's almost entirely dependent upon leg strength, not so much grip strength, you go down pretty quickly. I see it all the time. I call these the pancake ass guys. The old guys have these flat butts. There was a nice study looking at, it was entitled How Fast Does a Grim Reaper Walk? And they looked at independent walking speed. It wasn't like intentionally how fast I'm walking. It's just natural walking capacity. It was like above 3 miles an hour, you had a significant mortality benefit. And below 1.8 miles an hour, you had a significant mortality, risk. And so walking speed is directly related to leg strength.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, so there was this, the fallacy of rodent diets and calorie restriction. A lot of people that, and I don't want to pick on fasting because I do time restricted feeding. However, people overdo the fasting, then they get, you mentioned a pancake saggy ass, you start to lose muscle mass. And we just talked about 2 studies showing muscle mass is important. So when you look at calorie restriction and its purported longevity benefits, how do you sort of contrast that with, maintaining lean muscle mass to also prevent falls and everything as you age?
Right, and I think, a number of people discussed this recently. Alan Aragon, has talked about this, and Rob Wolf's talked about this for a while, and I've talked about it before. And Don Layman is a really good resource for that. The problem is most of these studies done on animals are done on lab animals, which tend to overeat. Lab rats generally overeat by 30% what they normally would in the wild. So they're chronically obese or chronically overfed. When you calorie restrict those people, those humans too, then you see a mortality benefit. In fact, the human studies seem to indicate that unless you're over a BMI of about 35, calorie restriction doesn't really have a longevity benefit. And so therefore, it's basically, yes, if you're obese, you shouldn't eat so much. But a normal, healthy weight person needs to eat to maintain stuff. So you're not going to fast, 3 days a week and maintain as much lean mass. It just doesn't work that way. So, but intermittent fasting, in contrast, you're getting your calories in every day. There's probably a benefit there. And I don't know if you saw the recent study. I think, I can't remember who published this, but this showed that there was there was like a 45 calorie per day benefit for time restricted eating in a 5-hour window versus a standard hour. And that's not that much, 45 calories, about 2% of your daily intake. but it also had significant glycemic control benefits, metabolic flexibility benefits, cardiorespiratory benefits. So there is some benefits there.
Yeah. So you're a pretty active guy. We just filmed a workout and so forth. I'll link it below. But how often are you, or what does your feeding window look like? Is it, you stop, it's about 4 o'clock here. Is this going to be dinner for you?
Yeah. I think what you eat is probably the biggest thing. That's the most important thing. And this drives appetite too. I mean, the fact that I'm eating a bunch of steak, I don't want to snack. I don't want to eat a bunch of garbage, right? So that's an important thing. How frequently you eat, again, it depends on how hungry you are. I usually like to eat twice a day. That aligns with what I'm eating. And then the only other thing I can variable I can look at is when I eat. And I prefer to eat earlier rather than later. I find that, eating kind of within the circadian daylight window seems to have an advantage. There's some studies that suggest that. And I know if I eat a really late meal at night, even if it's the same thing I eat during the day, I'm going to sleep less well. I'm going to get up at night. A lot of time when you're eating a higher protein diet, you have to deal with the nitrogen. And so you're breaking down those amino acids, you're pulling the carbon skeleton off. Now you got this nitrogen you got to deal with. So the body, first thing happens, it converts it into ammonia. Ammonia is toxic. So then it has to rapidly be converted to urea by the liver, the urea cycle. And then you got to get rid of it. And so, if it's in the middle of the night, you got to get up to go to the bathroom. I don't mind going to the bathroom at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but 3 o'clock in the morning is a different issue, right? So if I eat earlier, it's better, particularly, like I said, with a higher protein diet.
Yeah, great point. All right, Sean. So a lot of people are scared of eating a moderate to high fat diet, if they're, say, go keto or carnivore, because they're worried about what is the fat going to do, cause fatty liver or all these metabolic diseases. But I think what people don't realize is that when you eat a high carb diet, it's converting into lipids and making your liver fat. So are you concerned about individuals, or what do you say when people are sort of scared about, well, if I eat this animal saturated fat, isn't it going to clog my arteries, clog up my liver? What do you say to that?
Well, I don't think that the data would indicate that, based on any real scientific experimental data, there's some epidemiologic data that shows association between higher saturated fats and a number of health issues, but that typically conflates not what I'm doing, eating steak and exercising and working out, to the average person that's eating, McDonald's and French fries and Cokes and all that stuff. So there's a big difference there. And I think one of the things we have to realize is, the liver can convert carbon into fat or glucose. And so any carbons coming in, whether it's through carbohydrate or fat, and even protein, to some degree, the carbon skeleton there can be eventually rearranged and turned into either liver glycogen or through de novo lipogenesis into different fats. And one of the things is we look at when we see saturated fat in the blood, it's been associated with insulin resistance. And so we get the accumulation of things called ceramides. Now, the problem with that is it's not necessarily the saturated fat you're eating that's turning into saturated in the blood, particularly palmitic acid. It is, whatever energy is coming in. So as long as I don't eat this to excess where I get fat, I'm not going to have that issue. And so if I can eat, saturated fat, it leads to satiety, to where I'm not, developing all this both abdominal and visceral fat, it's probably not a big issue. And we've seen a number of studies showing that low carbohydrate diets reliably reverse fatty liver. There's all kinds of data that shows that. So I think, again, anything eaten to excess, sugar particularly, we know fructose is particularly good at doing that. Again, but it has to do with how much you're eating. And again, what you're eating depends upon satiety. And satiety is driven by, am I eating donuts and ice cream versus am I eating steak and eggs? And one provides better satiety than the other, and I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to overdo steak, eggs, and protein and fat together. That's a tough thing to do, which is great for a lot of people, because there was one study actually here was soda drinking in the brain of overweight adolescents. It stimulated these dopamine pathways. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing I think people don't realize is they're like, well, a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. But you're like, well, if you're consuming these ultra-processed, hyper-palatable foods, they're stimulating those pathways that are driving more addiction, food-like addiction. So I think that's really important stuff. And there was a study that just came out, I think a couple of days ago, where adolescents, about 23% of them now are pre-diabetic. That's insane.
Yeah. And then the other thing to piggyback upon that, not only is it stimulating these pleasure centers in the brain, the dopaminergic pathways, but it also is blunting the satiety responses from things like CCK or cholecystokinin, peptide YY, GLP-1. And so we know that carbohydrates, particularly these highly, quickly absorbed carbs, are blunting our satiety response. And we all experience that. We go to dinner and we're full, but then the dessert rolls around. So it plays with the satiety. Both it stimulates the brain and it also shuts down the satiety response. So if you can avoid that, you're going to eat pretty much naturally to your own satiety, and you're not going to have problems with obesity for most people.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever track your macros at all? Or?
I mean, I have a rough idea what I'm eating. Probably, I'm eating it, and it was kind of funny because I said I eat about 60 to 75% of my calories are coming from fat. When I compare a ribeye steak, which we just ate, was probably by calorie 65, 70% fat, and the rest was protein. Now, people will look at a ribeye steak and say, well, not there's more protein than fat. But again, on a caloric basis, it's coming from more. Because if I'm not getting carbohydrates, I've got to get energy from somewhere.
Sure, yeah.
And if I don't have a lot on me, I need it from a dietary source. And so right now it's fat and protein.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Really appreciate Sean coming on and talking about all these different studies. Let's talk a little bit, finish up on Ribero Health and how people, if they need a coach, want to get going, need some accountability and so forth, where can they learn more about that?
Yeah, well, the easiest thing is just go to Ribero.com, and we are in the middle of expanding. And so currently what we now is we have coaching and support and all the feedback, a lot of it's based on the carnivore diet, but we are expanding out to where we're going to be more broad-based in our dietary recommendations. We're going to be using some AI that we've developed from collecting a lot of data from folks. We're adding physicians to our team. We're adding, certified, nurse practitioners and other coaches. And so we'll be a full service medical organization. Our goal, unlike most medical organizations, is to get people off meds. That's our primary focus, and fix their diseases, and not just continue the vicious cycle of medication, and chronic disease for the rest of their life. Our goal, our mission is to figure it out and fix it, and don't stop till we achieve the goal. And we're going to do whatever it takes to support people and make them successful. So that's what we're doing at Ribero.
That's awesome. I'll put links in the show notes below, friends. And I think it's so timely. The average prescriptions of a Medicare eligible individuals is like 5. So people over 65 are taking 5 or more medications. So friends, thanks as always for tuning in, and click the links below. And if you like this video, please hit that like button. Leave a comment. Sean and I can do more of this. Definitely check out his channel as well. And Sean, thanks for having us over.
Hey, Mike, my pleasure. Thanks. Appreciate it. Let's go eat another steak.